Okay, and welcome to our Coach's Mailbag. In this one today, Coach T from Tackle Trading, by the way, here to answer one of your questions. This comes from Adam Drillon. And Adam, always good to see your face smiling there in our clubhouse talking about trading. And I think your question was very appropriate for a video here. Adam says, hey all, I was doing some training on TD Ameritrade website and chatting with them about early assignment. They didn't really give me a straight answer, so I'm asking the team if a buyer decides to exercise his or her right to purchase the option early for whatever reason, does that mean a random option seller will get assigned early? What if at that time the option sold was still out of the money or in the money but had more time till expiration? Will assignment still occur? Essentially, how do I avoid being assigned early? Adam, it's a good question. In an option contract, there's a couple things to think about. Number one is you have calls and puts. And then within the calls and puts, you have buyers of the options. And on the other side of it, you have a seller. Okay, now what Adam's talking about is the seller side. The reason why that's important is that the buyer owns the rights. Okay, the seller carries the obligation. Now, and we're not going to get into teaching the option course. I mean, go watch Options 101, obviously, on the Tackle Trading website, something like that. But let me just hit it from a high level. When you own options, you carry the rights. Nobody can make you do anything, so there is no such thing as early assignment there. Now, if you carry something in the money at expiration, the broker will, use your option and take the shares, okay? Or sell the shares, depending on if you own a call or put. But we're not talking about buyers. We're talking about sellers. Sellers of options, this is very important. Now, when you hear carries an obligation to buy a stock, and what if I don't want to buy a stock? And you start getting some anxiety and naturally, want to know what's going to happen. Information is power, right? It just doesn't happen all that often. I actually was very curious about this because I was thinking about my own, experience, Adam. I don't think it's been over a decade for me since I've had some kind of an assignment I didn't want. It just doesn't happen, right? The market is very efficient and very smart. But then I also thought, well, could it happen? And I went and looked up some information, even with the Options Clearing Corporation. See, your options go into a pool of options. The answer they gave is the answer I'm going to give right now. We don't know when and if you would be assigned. We don't control, it's a random selection. If somebody decides to exercise their option, we pick somebody randomly to assign it. So they must have some kind of pool system, something on the back end. I don't even know. I wouldn't even worry about it. And this is why. If they assign you early, that's a good thing, okay? Think about like if we had an example here on U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel is a bullish, company in general, bearish somewhat this year. Been a good stock for covered calls and naked puts. And so it could be a very common stock for like, say, a naked put strategy. And if you had 14 strikes or even, let's say, 9-day option, any of these, see this number extrinsic? Let me just take it one expiration at a time. Starting with the 30-day option, any of these options, they have extrinsic value. See, the value of the option is just not just the mark that you need to pay attention to. You got to think about, well, how much is the time decay value? See, this option's worth $1.40. If they assign you the $29.50, that means you got to buy 100 shares of $29.50, but that means you instantly capture $140 of profit per contract. They're wasting money if they did that. See, as a seller, you have generated this credit, 117, 98, 80, whatever it is, and if they exercise the option's no longer worth anything. These go to zero in your statement. You have to take the stock at whatever the strike price is, and that's the obligation of the contract part of it. But if they assigned you early, it's a benefit, okay? The only time you really run into risk of being assigned early, and I'm just going to put all of them in here, is if you're like in this deep in the money option, okay? These nickels, pennies, if there's arbitrage situations where some computer program would find a profit in something like that, they might give you early assignment. But it's just not very common. And frankly, it doesn't change your risk graph. See, if you have sold a put option and you are deep in the money on the 37 strike put. The risk profile looks like that. Okay. Now, if they then end up forcing you to buy the stock instead, because they assign the put option, the risk profile looks like that. Now look at the difference. Short put, long stock. See, it's just not a risk. I understand the concern. I understand the reason that you might want to think about it, but it's something I would not get worked up about. It doesn't happen hardly once in every blue moon. I can't even remember the last time it's happened. Even with a trader that I talked to, none of my students, nothing like that. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen, right? We got to prepare for that as investors and traders. But even if it did happen, all the market would be doing is giving you a gift, because you instantly materialize whatever extrinsic value is left in the option chain. You get to capture that as a profit, and the risk profile doesn't really change. So where is the potential downside? It's in margin. See, if you have the 31 put option, the margin might only be like, I don't know, $800, you know. Whereas if you have to buy 100 shares of stock, your margin goes up to 2,000. So if you had traded a lot of put options, like 10 of them, your margin at 8,000, if you end up having to take 1,000 shares at delivery, then your margin goes up to 20,000. So the money required to hold the position can change, but frankly, if you don't want to hold it, just dump it once you get assigned. Shouldn't be an issue. Great question, natural question, smart question. If they assign you, send them a thank you card, because that means they just gave you free money, young man. All right, guys, tackletrading.com, Coach's Mailbag. Question from Adam. Hopefully that helps answer that one, Adam, Coach T. And guys, if you ever have a question, get in our clubhouse or hit us up on Twitter, any of our social channels, and hopefully we can feature one of those.